you are now about to witness the awesome, crushing might of Knuckle Up! Yes! Welcome, my friends. Let it play. Let it play. My friends, to a show that seemingly almost kind of never ends. This is round number 218. I gotta let it play. I'm on my way back from nowhere. First line. I'm on my way back from nowhere. I took my time with a good night. I'm taking a real good look at you. I'm taking a real good look at your face. All right. That's the intro. I love that. Even though Bob Riley's name is Bob Riley the singer, Stigmata, Calling of the Justice, a CD, still available from Revelation Records. Bob Riley's name has come up recently in the press for attacking his brother-in-law, Harley Flanagan. You can read about it at Rolling Stone, Spin. Just type in Harley Flanagan stabbing, information comes up. Harley has got the difference. The difference is the news reports that originally reported that Harley Flanagan, Friend of Knuckle Up, on a show a couple weeks ago, that had gone crazy and started stabbing people at the Webster Hall show. Webster Hall, formerly the Ritz, it's probably built in total on an Indian burial ground. The difference between the first early reports, which were internet folderol, blogger cack, is that people at Rolling Stone and Spin, Village Voice, and so on actually fact check this stuff, and the counterclaim that as soon as the press kerfuffle cleared, and as soon as Harley got off of Rikers Island, the counter story came out was that he had been lured backstage and attacked. The only parts where these stories intersect in the slightest was that the claim is made by DMS, some hardcore gang of some renown. I've never heard of them. Grabbed him on his entry into the backstage area and held him so he could be searched. And then the stories wildly diverge. Then it becomes a Rashomon situation. People claims and counterclaims. But the mistake that was made, and for the first time publicly, you've been able to guess my sympathies in regards to certain things, but I've never made any public declarations. I've never made any public declarations of my political standing or this, but I think it's safe to say that I think Romney is a pig. And you will not find me voting for a plutocrat who wouldn't have me shine his shoes. So counter Elvis is possibly a apocryphal statement. The only thing a black man can do for me is shine my shoes. Yeah. He do a few more things for you. Write a few dozen of your songs. Play out a few dozen of your records. Uh, anyway, look, we don't need to get into that. Romney is a pig. You know, look, I am incapable of having benevolent feelings about anybody who's got $250 million in the bank. I'm sorry. Yeah, everything is reversed here. Uh, this is my right hand. We'll get into that later. So I think though the stories diverge wildly, having weighed in balance both the story, regardless of the friend of Knuckle Up effect, it seems much more likely that Harley would go into the enemy territory with a knife and attempt to stab his way in. That he was lured with the promise of maybe burying the beef and then was attacked. But ooh, it's my stomach. That seems much more likely. And like I said, Rolling Stone, Spin actually fact check their stories. So we'll see. I mean, DMS is supposed to be some kind of secret society. The bad part about secret society is when they become not secret. And now they're looking at this thing in court. People are not showing up to testify and saying, "Oh, we're going to let the street handle this." Yeah, the street should have handled it. I don't think that they ever intended for the cops to be there in actual fact. I think that was an unintended consequence. I think the bouncers and the crew was supposed to be dealing out some sort of street justice. What kind of street justice? Dude wrote all the songs, you know. And he said once he was there, in consideration for the fact that he was fighting for his life, he thought, which is his life as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor, his life as a husband, his life as a father, for, might put a little fire under a guy. So anyway, Bob Riley, the singer of Stigmata, the opening music, Calling It Just, a CD I still sell, which you can buy through Revelation Records. Look it up online. Came out decrying Harley's actions as being stupid, and he apparently is friends with Mike the Gook, the bass player, the Asian bass player for the Cro-Mag, the reformed Cro-Mags. I'm not going to get into what's a domestic dispute, the he said stuff. I just wanted to update you. In any case, this is round number 218. I am your host, Eugene S. Robinson. Non compos mentis, AWOL, POWAWOL. And so here I am, and I'm back again. Uh, you know, this is where people are vulnerable, where they have physical, aromatherapy. Where I could show you my aromatherapy things if my bag was close by. Who knows? It might make my arm better. Aromatherapy. In any case, we're supposed to have an interview coming up on the show. We have not had too many female fighters, but we have one coming up. Her name is Germaine Durandamy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. She's from Utrecht, the Netherlands. Weighs about 135, 5'7". Started out, it was a Muay Thai disciple, and is mighty, very serious. She's fighting on the Strike Force on the Strike Force card coming up on Showtime Saturday, August 18th. So she's fighting Hiroko Yamanaki. And so since we discovered tomorrow's stars today, and this is a big card because this is a card headlined by Ronda Rousey and Sarah Kaufman. And if you want to see some fingers in the air and the tide changing, you will take note of the fact that, excuse me, my voice is kind of hoarse. You will take note of the fact that that Dana White not only has been photographed with Jermaine several times. He has publicly now made the claim several times that he's a big Ronda Rousey fan. He's a big. Uh, uh, um, I mean, he wouldn't make the claim beyond that of knowing who any of the women fighters are, but he goes Ronda Rousey is amazing and a great fighter, and the future of women's MMA largely depends on there being more fighters like her. So there you go. This is a far cry. This is a far cry from him from his take of yesteryear, which was like, I don't have anything. I'm not interested at all. I mean, and if you think about it, this sort of makes sense in the same way that there's no. Not only do you not have many women in the NFL playing football in the NFL, if any, I think you might have zero. You also don't have a women's NFL. And if Dana White has said anything on several different occasions, he has said that largely, excuse me, he has said that he's interested in seeing the best fights delivered by the best fighters. So it's not really. It might certainly be a certain type of sexism, but he has taken note, he's paying attention, and he plans to be there. He said so. There you go. There's not much more you can do for that. In any case, we've got Jermaine Durandamy coming up. If she doesn't stand us up again, we have a hard time getting guests to think that this show is a priority because they hear about the karma and it frightens them. They get scared and hide like little mice in their holes. But she's been training with Team Sorrel, and so it should be harder for her to escape. She has fought. Let's see, I'll give you a prequel to some of her stuff. Ow. She has fought. Let's go down the list. I'll give it to you in a second. She has fought. How come it's not coming up? Oh well. I've seen it. I've seen her name there. Where's the fight finder? Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. What I mostly want is to be able to pronounce her last name. Her nickname is the Iron Lady. She's 5'11". I knew she wasn't 5'7". She's 5'11", 135 pounds, 28 years old. She fights bantamweight. So she's looking at down the road coming up against Rousey. She has beat Nikohe Johnson decision. She beat Stephanie Weber at the Diaz versus Cyborg fight January 2011 with a knee. John McCarthy was the referee. She lost to unanimous decision to Julia Budd at Strikeforce Challenges on June 24th of last year. And that's been her last fight of known. And she lost, her first fight was a loss to Vanessa Porto, and it was an armbar. So this is why she's been training a lot with Team Sorrel, Grappling Team Nonpareil, and so we will see her coming up and fighting, and then I'm hoping to see her in a few minutes on this show. So and then we can get the pronunciation of her last name down pat. Anyway, she 5'11", tall, Dutch. I remember the piece of graffiti I saw in the dressing room one time. We Oxbow played Holland, and it said things I like about Holland. That listed the food, the tulips, the windmills, the clogs. Things I don't like, and then the person wrote, "Suddenly I'm short." So that's the way it is there. And in any case, we've had a few interesting weeks a few interesting weeks since I've been away. I haven't actually been away. I've been sitting at the bed staring at my feet. Listening to the whisper of my pistol. Go ahead, Eugene. Go ahead. Do it. I won't tell nobody. The best part is everybody thinks I'm joking. He's so funny. He's so funny. Actually, I should push that joke a lot. Given the news as of late, anybody who starts displaying slightly aberrant behavior traits is going to find themselves on the receiving end of federal attentions, you know. Um, I think I'm the best. I'm going to go see Batman and shoot up the theater. I mean, how does this work? How does this work? You know, what happens? You know how many? There were 60 last year. Do you know what that means? That means roughly there's more than one a week. I mean, on the one hand, I like that people are going public with their psychoses, right? I mean, you know, became very fashionable for a period of time to be a serial killer, you know. But serial killers skulking around truck stops and bus stations, you know, hiding out in dark alleys. To me, this is it's more nerve wracking than somebody who decides to do an auto da fe, you know, goes out big time. I mean, I generally stay away from places where large crowds congregate. That's why I'm in Oxbow. Ah, yeah, that's funny. You got it? Because there are no crowds in an Oxbow show. Get it? It's very amusing. But crowds make me nervous. Large, not I mean not agoraphobic nervous, but precisely for the kind of reason that I become part of an undifferentiated, undistinguished mass. It encourages that kind of behavior. You know, what do you when a shark sees you know, a school of fish? You know, you know, is there really a difference between Bob, Rob, and John when you see a school of fish? There's no difference. A theater full of people sitting there trying to eat their popcorn. There's no difference. A sick temple full of guys in turbans. There's no difference. You know, and you go on like the white supremacy, white power boards, which I do on occasion because I think it's really funny. And they're like, "Come on, we gotta do something. We gotta do something." Rahowa, 14 words, 88. You know, and I tell you truthfully, outside of the particulars of their distaste, you know, we share a lot in common, existentially speaking. You know, a deep-seated frustration with the status quo, and a deep-seated dislike for being disaffiliated. Where we disagree are of course the causes. You know, whereas they might blame rich Jews and rich Jew bankers, I choose to blame God. And people richer and more successful than me. In any case, we're here to talk about fighting. We're not here to go down any philosophical rabbit holes because the show could go on for hours and hours if that were the case. And I'm not in the mood. In any case, we saw a bunch of the UFC on Fox this past weekend. Uh, I have realized there's a certain benchmark. I was feverishly, I don't own a television, was feverishly trying to find some place to watch the fight, you know, that would let kids watch it with me. Because I had Team Robinson there. And I finally gave up. Couldn't find anybody with a TV or with a TV who was interested in watching the fights. And then discovered that it was like when I asked that team member if he could, hey man, I'm going to miss the fights. Could you tape it for me? The guy goes, tape it. He goes, you want that beta or VHS? And I was like, what? He goes, old. Who knew? I must have seemed a fool trying to find a TV. You don't need a TV to watch TV anymore. I watched the entire UFC on Fox Online. Great fights. Finally, they have a free show that lived up to. They were good fights that lived up to the hype. We saw the return of Mike Swick, Mike the Quick Swick, friend of Knuckle Up. Long time since Swick has been on the show, but definitely a friend of Knuckle Up. As I've said before, I have beaten Mike Swick in training. Strong, powerful guy. And the only reason I beat him is because he shut in on me and dove his head into the mat and knocked himself out, which I will take as a win. It didn't stop Foloniki Vitale in his win over Matt Lindland. Took that as a W. Forget it. You knock yourself out. It's on you, buddy. So So Mike Swick had his triumphant return. This was the weird tournament style double mix. I mean, it seemed to me weird from the outset, but I think Joe Silva and Dana White might have something to go on with this. The idea was that Machida and Ryan Bader and Shogun Huha and Brendan Vera, the winner of these matches would fight John Jones. Now, there are a couple of things that might have you confused. One of those things that might have you confused is the fact that they all four have already lost to John Jones. So you see Dana White and Joe Silva sitting around going like, how do we sell this dog? How do we sell this dog again? Well, we sell it by Dana White amending his initial statement that the winner would get the thing, and he said, "You know what? Let me sweeten the pot a bit. Whoever fights the most exciting fight and wins gets to fight John Jones." Which is, you can see now. I mean, obviously, it's not money that motivates these guys all the time. Brendan Vera, whose fights I'll quote Dana White. Dana White responds to Ben Askren's criticism. Ben Askren is a Bellator fighter, champion wrestler who's made it over to MMA, and criticized the UFC about something. And Dana White, who's had a couple of pretty good smackdowns, I have to give it to the guy, said, "Hey, look, Ben Askren is what Ambien takes when it can't get to sleep." And so I say Brendan the Truth Vera used to be what Ben Askren took when he couldn't get to sleep. He fought boring fights. He had all his promise. He never took. How many times is the guy gonna lose? I mean, look, Dana White can't want a Filipino population so badly that he's willing to make us endure Brandon Vera forever. But then they did something really sort of weirdly honorable for professional sports. They addressed it in the pre-fight package. They say, look, the guy had this long-time fight with his management. They kept him in the courts. He was depressed. He couldn't concentrate. He was distracted. And everything fell off for him a few years ago. But he's back. He's recommitted himself to the sport. Right? Who knows what that was, but that fight that he just fought against Shogun Huha, he displayed enough heart to actually have signed his ticket for a few more fights at the very least. And he lost. There have been guys in the UFC who've been cut after one loss, and it's not always financial. It's not always financial. It's not like, oh, I had to back the truck up for this guy, pay him a load of money. He turns out subpar product. He's gone after one fight. 2 fights. Brendan Vera's lost a lot of fights. I don't know how many he's lost. I could look this up. I don't know how many he's lost, but he's lost enough. Once again, my friends, this is round number 218 of Knuckle Up. I'm glad to see you back. You might feel the same way about me, but you don't care about me. You don't care about me. In any case, let's look up Brendan Vera while we wait. But I'm going to give some credit where credit is due. Brendan Vera fought his heart out, and he, I mean, as a guy who had gone on record as having picked Huha, I'm not sure what planet Huha is on. He came out and said, yeah, look, Brendan Vera has won 12 times, has lost 6 times. You show me any other fight, and his losses have all been in the UFC. You show me any other fighter who's lost that many times in the UFC and still fights in the UFC. Right? He lost to Tim Sylvia, he lost to Verdum, he lost to Keith Jardine, he lost to Randy Couture, he lost to John Jones, and he lost to Huha. Oh, his wins in the last few years, well, of course, he beat Elliot Marshall. Remember that? No, you don't, do you? Because what about Michael Pat? He beat Michael Pat. You remember him in the last few years? Or Andy Reese. He beat him too. Now he does have some wins of renown. He beat Mike Whitehead. He did beat Frank Mir. He beat Krzysztof Szczynski. But that's it. But he will be fighting because he fought a great fight. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up for him. Thumbs up for him. Hoo-ha is not a guy I could comfortably put money on anymore. Makes me nervous. He was like, I was dead out there. It's like you did know you were going to have to fight 5 rounds, right? You did know this. Somebody at some point in your training camp, some manager or something, did tell you that you were going to have to fight 5 rounds. Is that correct, Mr. Vera? Well, yeah, I know they said 5 rounds, but I didn't believe that it would really be 5 rounds. You didn't believe it would be 5 rounds. You thought you would win before the 5 rounds was up. That's what it was. Come on, come on, stop this. In any case, he lost, but he's got a new lease on life. Hoo-ha won, but he stumbled through it. Machida and Ryan Bader, friend of Knuckle Up. Machida handled him. So Bader, not on that Brendan Vera, lot of heart plan, is probably he's not done and not out, but he has become a gatekeeper. Sad for a young man to see a young man stalled at gatekeeper, especially a friend of Knuckle Up. But what are you gonna do? You know, he did it. I have to tell you, he did exactly what I would have done that fight. Exactly. You know, I mean, Machida's outside. You know, he's shuffling and waving and head bobbing and doing all these things that seem infuriatingly like he's in the game while not putting anything on the line. It's like showing up at a blackjack table, like Tom Cruise in the socks and underwear, sliding around and putting a hat on your head and moonwalking. And people look down at the table, there's no money there. There's nothing. He's not risking anything. And finally, people start kind of booing, and Ryan is like, look, I got to fight an exciting fight. And he tries to bull rush him, and clip. Sleepy time down south. Gone. Welcome to gatekeeper status. Anytime a guy starts talking too much about his baby, his wife has just had a baby, and he's doing this for the baby, the guy's in trouble. Not because hey, not because there's anything shameful or retrograde about having a baby, but there are probably better ways to buy diapers for your baby than getting punched in the face a bunch. And if you're trying to get the public's you're trying to get your opponent to go easy on you because you got a kid at home. let me tell you, it doesn't work that way. Nothing I ever have said to an opponent, even just in training, has resulted in them ever going easy on me. My arm is kind of messed up. Oh yeah. I'm not wearing a cup. Oh yeah. I forgot my mouthpiece and I'm blind in the right eye. Yeah. It doesn't make a difference. This sport has got a 50% failure rate. And anybody who gets in that cage or on that mat or in that ring doesn't want to be on the rating side that fails. So a couple of amazing things happened. That one, this was a free offering, and it was good. Not like the Cain Velasquez, friend of Knuckle Up Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos, a fight that lasted, a minute in the first round. After all the big hype, that was no good. This was a free offering. It was great. It was a good representation of what the sport can deliver. And the fights were entertaining. Lyoto Machida deserved another chance to get choked and dropped like a bag of dirty laundry by John Jones. everybody made the right noises about John Jones having to get by Dan. I'm on testosterone replacement therapy, Henderson, and you know I have no complaints. It was a good product offering. It did what it was supposed to do. I'm waiting to see the numbers, but I think it was a good fight. It sets things up interestingly, and I even like to all talk about if John Jones can get by Dan Henderson. You never know. You never know. Dude could have been shaken by his DUI, or could be still sad because he racked up his Rolls Royce. I'm more shocked that John Jones is driving a Rolls Royce. What happened to the spirit of frugality? You have my honest promise, fans and listeners, that if ever there's a time in which I'm rolling hard enough to afford a Rolls Royce, I will never own a Rolls Royce. No, no. I will own a girl's bike, a squeaky wheeled girl's bike that I will ride through the neighborhood glowering at people, just like I used to have before it got stolen. Sadly, before I could ever take any pictures of me on this girl's bike, that was left by a crackhead on my front lawn and adopted by me, riding hither and yon to grocery stores on odd occasions. Who's that angry guy on a girl's bike in your neighborhood? That would be me. It got stolen, sadly. So you'll never get any photographic evidence of this. But I'm in the market for another crackhead delivered girl's bike. So if you know any crackheads and they got girls' bikes, feel free to drop them by my front lawn. I'd appreciate that. In any case, let's see if we can get. We're gonna do through the miracle of modern video editing. We are going to jump now to Team Sorrel, where we're going to be talking to Jermaine Durandamy, 27 years old, 5'11", 135-pound bantamweight prospect, and friend of Knuckle Up, Dutch. She's a physical giant. And this making it, what, how many? We've had 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our fourth friend of Knuckle Up, fourth female fighter on Knuckle Up. Discovering tomorrow's stars today. Never let it be said that I was not one of the early and aggressive boosters of women's MMA. Anyway, I'll take a small commercial break, which will not seem to you like a commercial break at all, because it'll be like half a second of blackness, and then we'll be back with the interview. We won't be here in the Knuckle Up studios. We'll be at Team Sorrel, and we'll be talking to Jermaine Durandamy, if she doesn't stand me up. In any case, let's hope, hold your breath. It'll be just like Bewitched. Ding-a-ding-a-ding. And then we'll be there. All right. All right. So through the miracle of modern technology, I appear before you in a different outfit than the one I started the show in. You don't know that any time has elapsed at all because it's been like 1 second. However, I've done a lot. And one of the things I've done has been to be stood up by Jermaine Durandamy again. Well, I guess stood up because we were supposed to talk to her yesterday, but it would have been for this show. So technically, she's only stood us up for one show. It's not that bad in terms of how things could go. But in any case, maybe she'll appear. Maybe she'll appear. Who knows? It'd have been a good thing since they're really working hard. Keep in mind, Strikeforce now is UFC. UFC, Strikeforce are virtually the same thing. UFC is bleeding it dry, but it still has a market need for the existence of Strikeforce, which is the only reason Strikeforce is still around. Whether it's a market business need of having some connection to Showtime, or whether it's a professional need to give women's MMA time to develop into something that could then be ported comfortably over to the UFC. I don't know, one or the other. There's a reason for it to exist, and if Dana White's publicly appearing and being quoted as saying that he's excited about Ronda Rousey fighting, we will have a reinvigorated Chris Cyborg, and there's some mutterings about Cyborg. The non-steroided Chris Cyborg fighting Ronda Rousey, which would be a fight with a lot of juice. Those of you who might have been fans, Gina Carano is never coming back. I can tell you right now, she is never coming back. I've not seen her in that movie against opposite Tatum Channing, or Channing Tatum, or whatever the cat's name is, who used to train down at Kung Lee's place, and Kung Lee would refuse to introduce him to me. I'm like, all right, listen, man, I don't need to be introduced to this guy. I'm just a journalist, that's all. But he, let me, if you weren't sure whether Channing Tatum or Tatum Channing, whatever his name was going to make it, first of all, the dude's a legitimate martial artist. I mean, he is a journeyman of any kind. You know, you walk into a martial arts school. Yeah, I could probably beat him. But he's not bad. His form is not bad. He doesn't stink, and he does it seriously. You know, he's training with Kung Lee. It was not embarrassing. The guy he trained with that he brought along to Kung Lee was embarrassing. The guy was one of those Hollywood guys. You know, haircut a little too nice, facial hair a little too cool, tattoos a little too perfect. That's the curse of L.A. You know, the curse of L.A. is sincerity. They don't know what it is, so they try to import it. In any case, now that he was in this movie, Tatum Channing, whatever his name is, with Gina Carano, and he hit big with this Magic Mike thing, the stripper movie. He's never going back. The guy had been an unemployed model living in his car, former high school football player, got into martial arts, whatever. In other words, my point is, he's a cool guy, decent guy, and apparently a smart guy. He hit big with this Magic Mike movie about male strippers. I haven't seen it. I haven't really had a chance to see Brokeback Mountain either. No reason. I just, I'm not big on love stories. So, Gina Carano will not return simply because she's got people who are aiding and abetting. Look, Steven Soderbergh will work with anybody. He's worked with Sasha Grey and the porn stars and the whole thing. But, Gina Carano and the connection to a guy who can now write his own ticket, Channing Tatum or Tatum Channing, whatever his name is, this is a good deal. Since she will never get beyond Chris Cyborg, and Chris Cyborg has no film options, I see Chris Cyborg staying, I see Carano going, and I see the fight between Ronda Rousey and Chris Cyborg as having a lot of juice in my mind. I'd be dying to see it. So anyway, Dana White's got on record as saying that. He said it. I believe it. That settles it. Dana White, not Jesus. Dana, I am an atheist. I am an atheist white. I love that. I love that. Anyway, so let's see. Dana White has also been quoted as saying something that I find quite amusing about another friend of Knuckle Up, and this specifically being Frank Shamrock, and he described Frank Shamrock. Let me pull it up here. He described Frank Shamrock as the most irrelevant man in MMA. I saw Frank Shamrock take what I thought was a 100-foot cliff dive into total stupidity when he was on some talk show and they asked him about Dana White, and he goes, that's a guy I'd like to see in a dark alley. I'd like to see him in a dark alley. And somebody said to him, kind of interrupted him and said, you were talking about your boss. He's like, yeah, well, I mean, good way to go all in, my man. Good way to go all in on that one. You should have just taken a poop on the desk and rubbed it on your face and then jumped around. You'd have a better chance of, whatever problem you had with the guy that stemmed from, maybe, an outsized sense of importance. Look, I don't know what it was, but I do know something else. I do know something. And what I know is you got to know when to hold it and you got to know when to fold it. And this idea that, that Frank Shamrock is anybody, Dana White very keenly feels like he built himself a billion-dollar company without your help. I'm not saying, this reminds me of that scene in Empires of the Sun Well, he said, the Japanese soldier says, get down there and pick up that rock. Because I'm an officer of the British Army, so I shall not pick up. And they stove his face in with the gun butt. John Malkovich jumps out of the back of the truck and he jumps out of the back of the truck and the British soldier waves him away. And he goes, I'm okay, I'm okay. And John Malkovich looks at him like, and goes and picks up the rock. You know, there's a time, man, when it's time to pick up the rock, Frank. Friend of Knuckle Up or not, I speak truth to power. You know? You hold no cards here, retired MMA fighter. You want to make a continue living. I don't know what kind of contract you have with Showtime, but you have to realize that the egg timer is on. And Tito had something to offer. Tito started as being managed by Dana White. You're not fighting. You got nothing. You got cards they don't even make. Ones. Not an ace. Not 11. A 1. So Dana White busted loose with that. He's had a good week. Ben Askren is what Ambien takes when he wants to go to sleep. He took a shot at Vince McMahon, but I won't repeat it, and I didn't read it because I don't think that anything Vince McMahon says is, you know, listen to what Vince McMahon says is like listening to the fart of an elephant. You know, elephants mostly appear in circuses in North America or zoos. I mean, they're really great and intelligent animals. They've done a lot. Hannibal used them to take over countries or something. Not so strong in the history. But you know, it's fake wrestling, man. I'd be ready to listen to Steven Seagal sooner. Anyway, so Dana has had a tear. It's sort of endorsed women's MMA. If you have daughters who are into MMA, or interested or like people who are fighters who fight with some heart, it's fine. Dana White has actually had this thing with his mother. She has written a tell-all book. Do not let this for a second make you feel sorry for the man. She compares him to Satan's spawn. And she's trying to come up with funding for a book. Listen, let me tell you something. If you become a multimillionaire, you need to face up to certain facts. And one of those facts would be that you're going to have to make some sort of payments. So, B. Matthews, I'm responding to your fan letter. You can't feel sorry for Dana White. You just got, in cases where people like this go public, you gotta. Why did Tiger Woods have his stuff put on blast? Because he was thinking that he was gonna have a dalliance with a cocktail waitress and then leave her to her $600 a month apartment and go back to his $1 billion mansion. No, Jack, you got busted because you didn't put these people on the payroll. Put them on the payroll. So June White has written a book called Dana White, King of MMA. She actually compares him to the son of Satan. Should I read some to you? I will. Rosemary's Baby came out in 1968. The movie starred Mia Farrow as a young woman who by the end of the movie has Satan's child. Dana was born in 1969, shortly after this movie came out. One afternoon when the nurses brought Dana to me for his feeding, thoughts of this movie came back to me. I remembered how Mia Farrow was so sick through her pregnancy in the movie, just like I was. This was the first time Dana had opened his eyes while he was with me. When I looked into his eyes, I was taken aback by how black his eyes were. I had never seen anyone with eyes so black, especially a baby. That realization is etched into my mind as I stared into those eyes for the first time only yesterday. My family ancestry is Irish, and so we all have blue or green eyes. I could not tell where Dana's pupils ended and where the color of the iris should have started. The effect was chilling, and I had the feeling of looking into soulless eyes. The experience was truly upsetting and worried me as to who or what he would grow up to be. This is just a sample. She calls him egotistical, self-centered. This is a quote, egotistical, self-centered, arrogant, and cruel. And then she goes on to compare him to Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. And then she talks about a time he sent her a nasty email that almost gave her a stroke. And now she's running some Kickstarter campaign to raise money so she could finish the book and have it published. The fact that Dana White will probably kill anybody inside the community who in any way, shape, or form helped her finish his book makes it all that more enticing that you should go out and buy the book. And when you do, send me the PDF. I will not make anybody named White, Dana, or June any wealthier than they already are by paying for it, even if she's not getting the money. So, the shot down, I think we talked about the last show, Friend of Knuckle Up, Nick Diaz versus Anderson Silva. You know, I think ego is what's driving Dana White to shoot this down. He says, I'm going to take a guy who lost to Carlos Condit, let him go up and wait and fight the best guy in the world. You know, he goes, what are you, crazy? Yeah, you know what? You know what? It's a good fight. And you need to think about good fights. You know, maybe he'll do like Steve Jobs. When people say, I think we should put it out an iPhone, Steve Jobs would go, that's the most freaking stupid idea I've ever heard. And then 10 minutes later, he'd be like, hey, you know, maybe we should put out an iPhone. Everybody go, that's great, Steve. Yeah, it is, isn't it? The guy who came up with the idea would be sitting there like, what just happened? So maybe that'll happen. But there's no real, I mean, if you can think of a fight that sounds more exciting for Anderson Silva, let me know. They've got these guys in these cul-de-sacs, and it's not cool. John Jones, you let me know. You know, there's still some motion, but they've had to face certain facts. Uriah Faber has had to face certain facts. He goes, I can't lose any more weight. I'm done with that. Which means he's effectively stalled. Until he can come up with an answer for Jose Aldo, nowhere. These guys become gatekeepers. They take up-and-coming prospects and either give them a leg up or you know, a boot down. So, I mean, you've got Dos Santos and Overeem. There's some flex in the heavyweight category. There's some room. There's no clear dominance there, which we'd like to see. But, I mean, eventually, when you have a royal flush, you have every segment of this community locked in with a definable winner who could hold it for as long as they want. What are you going to do? Something to think about. Something to think about. GSP is a winner. But nobody wants to. I don't know anybody outside of Friend of Knuckle Up, Jenna Castillo, who's excited about GSP fighting. It's been so long, and his fights were so cautious, and don't think he's going to come off of a reconstructed knee that's kept him out in a year and fight like a berserker. This will not happen. This will not happen. Excuse me. This fight, Vera. So in any case, if I didn't make it clear, and if you don't know it because you've been living in a cage, my picks were almost all on. There was a freakish Phil Davis, Wagner Prado eye poke, and then the language miscommunication where they said, "Can you see?" And Wagner Prado says, "I see two of you." What he really meant is, I see you both. I see the ref and I see the doctor. What the doctor heard is he's looking at me and seeing two of me. That's not what he meant. But they stopped that fight. I believe Phil Davis would have won that fight, but he stopped that fight. So my picks were Phil Davis. I don't remember what they were. Who in the undercard? I didn't touch anybody but Phil Davis and Wagner Prado. I think I maybe picked Cole Miller against Nam Fan. Nam Fan won by decision, so I was wrong on that one. But I got Hoo-Ha right. He beat Vera. I got Machida right against Bader, knocking him into a doorkeeper status. I didn't pick Lausanne against Varner, but I had it in my head. I just didn't write it down. I picked Mike Swick. So that's almost a run. That's a good enough run for me. Good fights. Good fights. Good intro for first-timers. You know, for first-timers to the sport. So, anyway, so there you go. Those are the fights from this past weekend. I am sorry that we got stood up And we'll try again for next week if that's possible. I got some fights coming up. Of course, I will never tell you when I fight. And I will officially, at this point in time, no longer speak about my arm. There's this new school of therapy that believes that rather than focus on the stuff, the horrible, miserable stuff in your life, which is what Freudians do. Well, let's talk about your mother. I think now we should speak about your father. Want to speak about my father? I think that if you were fast enough, we went from Freud to Blade Runner. If you caught that, you're very good. So this new school of therapy says that what the human brain does is what we should allow it to do. And what Prince said about his marriage, they asked him on the TV show about his marriage, and he goes, I treat my marriage like I treat other things I don't like. And they said, what? He says, I make believe it doesn't exist. So I will not talk about the arm anymore. I've got for the remainder of the year, I've got 3 fights, and they're in far-flung places. So don't try it. I don't care if you show up, but I don't need to know that you're there. But I'll talk about them. And yes, and I will be playing Paradise City every time I enter the arena. Until further notice, this still works. Tingling or no tingling. So anyway, so what do we have on the calendar? Let's go. The show has been an hour long. I'm sorry it's been that long. It's been a while. What else do we have? Winning isn't enough, Dana White says. Vera conference call. Melendez and Pat Healy, just September 29th. Man, Strike Force has become kind of like, unless it's women's Strike Force has become kind of like WNBA. I feel sorry. Gil's got to get out of there, which means he's got to do something he didn't do his last fight against Josh Thompson. He's got to win in crushing, convincing fashion. Koscheck said that he wishes AKA would burn to the ground with Javier Mendez still in the building. I don't know. Clubhouse cancer, you tell me. I don't know. Heavyweights, Shane Carwin and Roy Big Country Nelson are coaching the next season Ultimate Fighter. Actually, the current one, Ultimate Fighter in Brazil, looks really good to me. There are a couple other fights. Invicta, Dana White, again, is a big fan of Invicta. It's got Basler. They're having a fight coming up. When was the fight? Oh, it's over. Sorry. Is it over? Yeah, this was pretty over. But Invicta FC, this is Invicta FC 2, Olympic silver medalist Sarah McCann, submission specialist Shanna Basler. So Liz Caramouche. These are good promotions. Good promotions. And we're gonna have a lot in the kiddie pool coming up with everybody coming back from the Olympics. All the wrestlers who decide that they're not going back to work in the factory when they don't get TV commercials. So it's an exciting time. Let me. Dana White's more the comparison to Satan. You don't know how funny that is to me. But you can usually Dana White scream, "Ma!" Ah! So the next fight that I'm sort of excited about is, of course, John Jones and Henderson. That's coming up. Frankie Edgar versus the champion, Benson Henderson. I don't know why they're still calling Frankie Edgar the champion. He's not that. He is now the challenger. Yeah. So let's see. What do we got coming up? Anderson Silva is contemplating what? Anderson Silva is contemplating, wait for it, move to welterweight. So who knows? I know he walks around like at my weight or more. I'd like to hear about how he diets down exactly. But so coming up, here we are right now. It'll be, by the time you look at this show, it'll be August 8th. So coming up right now, we have August 11th, Henderson versus Edgar, Part 2, the UFC 150. That's this weekend. Oh, at the Pepsi Center in Denver. I'll make my picks right now. Right now. I need to write them down because I will forget them. Thiago Tavares versus Dennis Hallman. I know them both, like them. Don't feel strongly enough about what's gone on. I love Dennis Hallman, though. I'm glad to see him back. I hope he will wear something other than Speedos in this fight here. Yushin Okanami versus Buddy Roberts. You know, never count out Buddy Roberts. Who? Yeah, exactly. Jake Shields is fighting Ed Herman. Jake Shields is a friend of Knuckle Up. Ed Herman, tough guy. You know what? Donald Cerrone versus Melvin Guillard. I'll just pick three. You know, how about this? I'm picking Ben Henderson to win over Frankie Edgar. And how about that's the only one I pick? That's how strongly I feel about this card. So anyway, is this a pay-per-view or is this on Fox? It's I don't know. It's a number, so it's pay-per-view. So watch it if you can afford it. If not, you know, I'll send you the beta. I'll record it for you in beta. Anyway, that is a show. Hey, come here for a second. Yes. Yeah. I can't. I need. Could you give me that bell? Right there, and the hammer next to it, and then put it right here. All right. So I'm gonna have my able studio assistant do this. So thank you for coming. This is round number 218. I'm your host, EUGENE S. Robinson, and this has been Knuckle Up. I might see you in a couple weeks. I might see you next week. I don't know. I'm sorry about being inconsistent, but in the last dog days of summer, got my mother coming out to visit. You remember her from past shows, so I'll be busy. I may not have the time to do the show. But in any case, I will be back, at the very least 2 weeks. So thank you, and...
Ready to?
Yes! Thanks! We'll see you next week.